Dude, I was at the game where Wilson Contreras
Did you
hit
want to
a
jump the
three-run
fence?
homer
Yeah.
and threw his bat into the stratosphere. So Wilson Contreras, first baseman for the Red Sox, is from Venezuela, and so he's doing stuff like he's like collecting money for Venezuela, the
Cool.
recent earthquake before the games and going out. So he's playing very emotional. He's a fire guy already, and so he hit this three-run homer in early innings, first inning of the game, and just threw his bat like so high into the air. It landed after his ball landed outside of Fenway. I'm not joking. I watched it go over the Green Monster, and then the bat hit the ground.
That's
So I'm like,
power.
that's crazy. And then he runs around. He actually got ejected from the game in the second inning, his second at bat. Anyways, it's a long story.
From the
But
fight?
No, the fight happened the next game.
Jeez, man, this guy, he's playing on emotions. I
He's
kind of like
a
it,
very
kinda not.
I do. I actually think that they need it. They play a lot angrier and just like they just needed something because I think that they're down on themselves. It just goes to show mindset matters. You got to get locked in.
Well, they swept the Yanks too, so
Dude,
right?
they swept the Yankees, and I was at one of those games. It felt so good. My buddy Trevor, who you've met, he was visiting from out of town. So good, so good, so good.
Dude, sports, we're in the thick of it, and we won't get into FIFA too. Or we won't get into FIFA, but also FIFA. Let's jump in really quick to what we're going to be talking about. I wanted to start this conversation by saying we are not financial advisors because we are going to be talking about some finance stuff. So we are not financial advisors, and this is not financial advice. And the other comment I also wanted to make before we get started, sorry, a lot of comments, because I like to like cover all my bases, is I know that not everyone is in a place to put money away into like a Roth IRA or a retirement account. But if you have that capability and it's a great decision, it was a great decision for me. We'll find out if a great decision for you. But I like obviously trying to keep everybody in mind. I know that everybody's not fiscally like capable of doing that, but most of these stories are going to be like, hey, this is what I did and it helped me out. What Garrett did, what helped him out. So just wanted to put that statement out there because I like to be cognizant of that. Anyways, so to start things off, I wanted to talk about really quick just these little stats that I pulled from my Roth 2 days ago. And I took a screenshot because I was like, oh, this is really cool. So what is a Roth IRA? A Roth IRA is a long-term investing strategy account that you can't touch until you're 59 and a half. All right. When I was 19 years old, I started my first one, and I'm going to tell that story here in a little while. But I started with $2,000. I'm 37 years old now, so about almost double that age. So 37 years old, from 19 to 37 years old, now it has $184,000 in it. Okay, I haven't maxed it out every year, and I'm like, when I looked at it, I was like, that's a lot of money. Both my parents were teachers. We grew up middle class, and the other cool thing about that, last thing I'll say, and then I'm gonna shoot it over to Garrett, but in the past year, it's grown 27%, which is crazy because obviously we know the average growth for Roth or for the S&P 500 is around 10%. So it was 145,000 just a year ago, and it's grown like something like $39,000 in just a year, which is kind of cool to see. You're just like, oh my God, that's really cool. Anyways,
what's your allocation, stocks and bonds?
So right now I just do $6,000 a year, so $500 a month. That is my current allocation. I've been doing that since I was probably 25, 26 years old. So I know it's up to $7,000 now, right?
Yeah. Are you all in equities, or like what do you?
It's a great question. So I have a financial advisor from Edward Jones, because when I started it, when I was 19 years old, knew nothing about finances. I was like, go to Edward Jones, they'll tell you what to do. And I'm still with Edward Jones. Now, some people do their own, which is totally fine. I haven't taken that leap yet. I've kind of wanted to, but how about you, Garrett? Do you run your own?
I'm running my own. I'm using Vanguard. I have a Roth IRA in Vanguard, and so I'm just buying index funds.
Cool. And just curious, when did you start yours?
I was like 18. Yeah, I remember like meeting with my dad's financial advisor, and he helped get me set up. And then when I got into college, or like after the Air Force Academy, I rolled it over into my own. And I was like, and I was trying to put in like,
dad's the one who told you basically, hey, with my financial advisor, and he's going to get a Roth IRA started for you. Very nice of him. That is a very good dad.
That's great. Yeah, it's a good gift. And he kind of instilled in me a lot of like the long-term planning mindset, you know, just kind of like, hey, you know, you think about the future. I remember like I was like 10 years old when first like learned about investing. My dad was like, okay, for your birthday, would you want $100 or $100 of Microsoft stock? And I was like, I don't know where I got this idea, but I was like, I want Microsoft stock. And
what year was this?
How old am I? This would be 2002. So right after the dot-com bubble. So it's like probably the lowest point that you could buy Microsoft at. Yeah, that conversation. I texted my dad the other day and I said, "What happened to that?" And he's like, "I don't really remember that conversation." I'm like, "I'm sure you don't remember that conversation." Because it never went anywhere, and I'm sure, you know, he gave me whatever. I was like saving my money from my lawn mowing business in like a kid's checking account at Wells Fargo, and I didn't have any investments until I was 18. I looked up what it would have been. That money, if I just the $100 of Microsoft stock, would be like 15x by now.
Pretty good.
Which, you know, it's whatever. Like the entry point would be great, but also I think it's more like the activity that matters. Like I'm in a similar boat to you where I started at 18 and was pretty consistent. I tried to max it out a lot. And I'm at a point now where my Roth IRA plus my wife's together is at 450.
Let's go.
Okay. Yeah.
Dude, see? And like, how does that make you feel? I just want to like, what is that feeling? Like, how does that make you feel?
I feel pretty calm. In part because I know this is like a strategy that I followed some good financial advice from a few folks, like looking into things, because I wanted to become more of an active investor. And the conclusion I came to is don't do it. Not in part because I think that it's a bad idea. It's just really hard to beat an index. It's really hard to beat an index. Not impossible. And there's people who spend a lot of time doing it. So it's like I would need to be really good at it and enjoy the process. And I didn't really enjoy the idea of like the research aspect of it to kind of figure out what I wanted to buy. And so it's like a strategy of like, okay, well, at least I'm not going to miss out on the market return. So you talk about in this past year how the economy, or at least the stock market's been on a tear, and it will probably go down. Like we're going to have some sort of recession in the future. I know that it's like it'll go down and then it'll go back up at some point, likely. And if not, this is a fairly safe strategy, and I feel pretty comfortable about it. I don't know. What about for you?
So
like when you're looking at your account, you're like,
so when you said calm, so when we talk about like money is important, but it's not the only thing. But you want to feel fiscally like taken care of, right? Like I go back to both my parents were teachers. We were very middle class, and you know, in all honesty, you know, money was like always tight. We were always like, you know, eating. I remember a trip that we did from North Carolina to a wrestling tournament in Michigan, Detroit. We did nationals, and then we drove up through Canada. And what do I remember about that trip is eating Sun Chips and Capri Suns in the car, because we just didn't have a lot of money to stop to eat food and stuff, like because it would cost, you know, $100 probably to feed the whole family, maybe more. Anyways, so the reason why I tell that story is because like money, we were just very tight on money. So when I started to keep my own money, I was like, man, I really want to grow wealth so that I'm not worried about money when I get older. Now, so the reason why you say like calm is because like when you feel calm, I feel like when you're calm, you make like very rash decisions, and you can make better decisions about, you know, money.
Rational.
Yeah, rational decisions.
You said rash was the opposite. If you're hot,
Exactly. And so I wanted to, honestly, I thought about why. I was like, man, I wanted to do this podcast because I remember my story of when I learned about a Roth. I was at the prep school, Air Force Academy prep school. And this major, I'm pretty sure his name was Major Mandeville. I looked him up. I couldn't find him. But anyways, and I think he was about my age right now at that time. So I was like, because he was a major, and I was like, oh, he probably was around like mid 30s, late 40s or something like that. Or sorry, to maybe 40s. And so I was like, okay, in one of our classes, and the class was called pre-flight, and it was basically to like tell you how to use a syllabus, how to use a calendar. And then he one time brought out a sheet of paper and gave it to everybody, and he said, hey, everybody take a look at this. And it was basically a piece of paper that explained what a Roth IRA was. And if you invested from 18 to 30 and maxed it out and didn't touch it again until 60 years old, you'd be a millionaire. And it was if there was a rate of return of like at least 10%. And I was like, I've been poor my whole life, or middle class. I want to be a millionaire when I'm, older. So that like clicked for me. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. And as soon as like the next year when I had like $2,000 saved up, I was like, I want to start a Roth. And so that's what I really wanted to tell the story is because, whoever's listening to this, if you're high school, college, and you're like, hey, how should I invest? The Roth IRA for me is the best long-term hedge of all time, right? We're going to take a lot of bets in life. We're going to choose jobs. We're going to buy houses. We're going to do different really fun things. But you want to have some kind of safety net when you are 60, 70, 80 years old. So you're like, for me anyway, I wanted to be like wealthy when I'm older, so I'm not worried about money. And so I think that was for me really, really helpful information that has set me on a trajectory of like giving me calm so that I know when I retire, I'm going to have money. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I have a similar story. What year was this? Probably junior or senior at the Air Force Academy. I was in a management class, and it was personal finance class. So a little bit of like, budgeting, understanding different accounts. And then, at the last day this is not financial advice, but here's kind of what you should do. And they gave really actually sound advice. Like looking back, I know they could have said a lot of stuff. And one of the things that they mentioned was the use of the thrift savings plan, so the TSP account, which is unique to the military, but it has corollaries to a 401k or a 403b retirement account. So that's usually through an employer, and the limits are higher on that, and you often have a match, right? So in the military, you have a 5% match. So if you put in 5% of your money, you'll get 5% free money that the government will also put in that account. And the advice they gave in that class was, hey, start putting in something, and it's an automatic distribution, which I think is important, because if it's something that's always a task to do and you're constantly having this friction of, I need to remember to do this, most people are not going to either remember, or just the feeling of I'm making this decision to put this money away is like another layer where now emotions can get involved in a way that if it was automatic, then it's not involved, right? Not allowing my own current state drive whether or not I wanted to make that decision. I just knew it was a good decision overall. And the advice that he gave me was this: put them away, and every time that you get a pay bump, so in the military, it's every 2 years, and at every rank you're getting a little bit of a pay bump. He said, just dial up the percent a little higher. So you go 1%, and then the next pay bump you get, you increase it to 2%. The amount that you kind of net of your bump in pay, you're already going to feel, okay, I have a little bit more money, but you're also increasing how much you're putting in, and so you feel it less. Mm-hmm. And so psychologically, it was really easy to just like start bumping that up. And so, pretty soon I was getting the 5% match, which is a good place to start for most people. That's kind of like a good early target to move to if you have one of those 401ks or TSPs. And then he said, hey, by the time that you're a captain, so that's 4 years in, you should max out your TSP. And
which is like 20 grand or no?
Yeah, I think it's 20 grand at the time. It's a little higher now. And for me, because I started living my means, so I was like my means and my standard of living, I was starting here, and each time I got a pay bump, I was kind of like increasing how much I was putting in each time. It didn't feel like this big sacrifice from out the gate of trying to max it at the beginning. So that by the time I got there to captain, I was maxing out, and I was living on less versus living on my full paycheck, which then having to kind of like make that lifestyle adjustment would have been more difficult. So I was fortunate that I started to do that gradually over time.
Right. And the information from that person was like, oh, this is how you do it. This is a good habit to do. And then I think the thing that I took away from you with that was the automatic contribution. Like not having to worry about it. Like, cause every month $500 is taken out of my account and put into a Roth IRA. And so you don't even think about it. And you just go, obviously I know not everybody can do that, but I was watching an Impact Theory episode, and this guy named Jaspreet, I can't remember his last name, but he told a great story, or not a story, but basically if you're 18 years old, you can put $100 a day, or sorry, $100 a month, not a day, that would be a lot. $100 a month into a Roth starting at 18 years old and never increase the amount, $100 a month until you are 60, and you'll be a millionaire. So I think it's like, I love hearing those little tidbits of information too. Like the percentages are great, and like increasing is great. But even if you are making like if you are making very, very low amount of money, the Roth is such a good hedge and allows you to put away money so that you don't touch it. And it's like, just put away $100, and $100, for some people it's a lot of money. Some people it's not a lot of money, but it's still something. And then what's funny is, last thing I'll say on that one is I was doing a training session with a quarterback, and his dad was walking around the track, and his dad's pretty wealthy. And I was talking to this kid as I was throwing, because he was like a senior in college. I was like, have you started a Roth? He was like, what's that? I was like, you don't know what a Roth is? Like, your dad's like does really well. And then he yelled over to his dad. He's like, Dad, what's a Roth IRA? He was like, you don't need to worry about it. You have a Ron IRA. and the guy's name was Ron. And so, which is funny because I was just like, oh man, like, obviously Ron does really, really, really well. Yeah. So like, doesn't need to worry about it.
If you don't have you a Ron, you can get you a Roth.
If you don't have a Ron, do a Roth. So that's the Roth IRA, but also we can come back to that. I wanted to jump in to a couple other things, because when I was younger, I did like to make bets. Okay. Small bets. And I don't know if you ever did any sports betting. I may have done some sports betting. I may not have. And I may have had this guy named Bookie Billy that took my bets the first year out of college, when I would text him my games for the football season every weekend. And it made me think of like Kalshi, Polymarket, all these things that you can make bets now. And it's so easy for younger people to do that. My first question is, have you ever, maybe or maybe not, made bets like that when you were younger? Because I know I did. The reason why I say that is because if I would have had Kalshi or Polymarket, I would have been using that probably to do that, like full transparency.
Yeah. No, I've never sports bet, not used Kalshi or Polymarket.
Good on you.
I don't like gambling, gone to Vegas a few times and some other places where you can gamble. And for me, it's the feeling of if I paid, let's say I paid $200 for 2 hours of entertainment, like free drinks and kind of hanging out with friends. That sounds like upfront. There's a psychological aspect to sequencing, right? Versus constantly paying out and just losing money across the time. For me, just felt miserable, and so I actually stayed away from it. So I'm opposed to those things. But I guess, what is it for you, like that you get out of it, like that you enjoy?
So what I'll say is like probably the reason why I enjoyed gambling is because when I was like 12, 13, 14, and even into high school, my cousins and I would play poker in the summertime. Our families would take trips together, like 2 trips a year together. And the entire time when we were like 12, 13, 14, 15, we played poker in our spare time or at night and stuff. So we loved, like, we weren't like degenerates, and we weren't like, going, trying to figure out like ways that we could always spend money, but it was like fun. And that's why I think I kind of enjoyed that aspect of it. And I wanted to play a Sam Altman clip in here, but I'll just explain it. But he was doing an interview in YC one time, and he played poker in college to basically pay for his room and board and like stuff like that. And he said in the video, he said that playing poker and angel investing is probably the 2 best things that taught him the most about life and human psychology, which I'm not trying to like say like I'm like Sam Altman, but it was like a vote of confidence where I was like, oh, wow. Like, because when I played poker growing up, you're like calculating stuff. You're trying to play tight. You're playing, playing a little loose, stuff like that. And I think that's where I kind of got the betting slash like gambling bug. And so that's where, and then I would go on, and then another little tidbit there. I remember going on cruises. I've been on like 2 cruises where they had like 3-card poker, and I would get lucky, and I would be like, oh man, this is, I know it's not like all skill and not all luck. And it was like exciting because it was like, pulling that lever, getting those cards. And I got like a straight flush like twice when I've been playing that. And it's like a big payout in terms of like Austin's world. And so that's why I was like, oh man, like I kind of enjoy it. I kind of want to press my luck to see if I'm good enough to pick the winners.
Yeah. No, I think that winning is fun, and I do see the joy in it. It seems like I'm glad that Polymarket and Kalshi and DraftKings and all those things didn't exist for your sake when you were growing up, because you could have easily been in a situation where in the prep school you get this sheet on a Roth IRA, but you could gamble it.
Yeah.
Instead of putting that money into the Roth IRA, you could gamble it, because think about what it could turn into, and then that's gone, and you start down the path. I think one of the best psychological things. So I mentioned the psychology of money. Mm-hmm. And it was the now I'm forgetting the guy's name again. My First Million interview
Sean
with
or Sam.
Sean and Sam both interviewed this guy.
Rick Holtz, Rick, that guy.
Yeah, I think so. He's talking about like
he was like the Rich Dad Poor Dad is a scam.
Yeah. So I think it was in that episode or another one I'm remembering. It's like this idea of a cowboy account, or so if you cover your bases with something like a Roth or a TSP or 401k, or in you're diligent about saving and have like a lifestyle, then that fun money, the additional stuff, having those limits around it, then go ahead. Like, it doesn't matter. Sure, if that goes to the moon, awesome, great, go do some things. For me, that's Bitcoin, right?
Ooh.
I have a lot of like conviction in Bitcoin right now. I had some intermittent conviction in Bitcoin in different time periods. I was looking at some of the highs and lows, and I was definitely making emotional decisions where I was buying in, and it would kind of go up, and then it starts to drop down. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should cash out. And I really didn't have a good sense of why I was doing it. Now I have a much higher conviction in why I'm doing it. And this is all separate from my retirement stuff.
Cowboy account.
It's my cowboy account. It's the thing that scratches the itch, so I don't touch the stuff that's probably actually going to save me at the end of the day. Sure, let's say this goes off and it goes crazy. Awesome. I feel great about having the other side, my savings and my lifestyle being underneath my what I'm bringing in, such that I can kind of feel guilt-free about this other stuff.
For sure.
And it seems like, you're doing something similar in your life as well.
Kinda. I think so. What you're saying, that what's funny is when I hear your first number of like, oh, my wife and I have $450,000 saved up in our Roth IRA. It's like, okay, well, let me see if I can bet on something / invest in something that I maybe know a little more about life, and this is going to maybe bump up our net worth, and I can see if I'm going to be right. I've done the same thing a couple of times. I'll tell 3 investments / bets that I made. One was a gold investment. A friend of ours asked me and asked a bunch of other friends and family members to invest in his gold mining business. I invested $10,000 10 years ago. It all went away in like 2 years after I invested. Like, basically he sent out an email that said like, hey, we lost our money. They lied to us and all this other stuff. 10 grand. And I'm just like, dude, 10 grand if I would have invested that. Insane. If I would have invested that in Bitcoin, we wouldn't be talking. Just kidding.
We wouldn't know each other.
But going back to Bitcoin, it was something that was very exciting, and I had heard information about it. And the first time I invested in Bitcoin, I actually did it through my Robinhood account it was like 2016, 2017. I think it was 2017. And I bought one Bitcoin, and it was like $7,000 to $8,000, and it went up to like $19,000. And a friend of mine who had been in the investing world was like, dude, sell right now. Like that never happens. Like it doesn't happen. I'm just like, like they're saying it's going to go up to like 20 or 30 or 40. Like, and so obviously being back in 2017 ish, I was like, and I hadn't had enough time in the market to know that was great. And I'm not saying you can't predict tops and you can't predict bottoms, right? So that's why the dollar cost averaging is probably the best way to go if you have conviction enough in a certain investment. But why I talk about that Bitcoin investment is because it was the first time I had actually almost done my own investing. And I was like, oh man, I picked a winner. That's awesome. Like, blah, blah, like, you get that feeling of like, I was right. And then all of a sudden it went down, to your point, it went down back down to like 9 or 10,000 and I sold out. And then it went down to like, 6 or 7, like, and I kept buying in, getting out, buying in, getting out. And it was like frustrating because then you're playing like when's the right dollar amount to buy in? So that was like the $10,000 I lost in 2 years. Dumb. Like I say that was a dumb investment because it wasn't dumb, but at the time I was just like, oh, he's saying it could like 10X in the next 5 years. I was like, that sounds awesome. So I'll give him 10 grand. The Bitcoin investment, a lot of hype around Bitcoin. So I was like, you know what? I'll invest now. I didn't know enough about it to really understand the thesis, but I was like, it doubled in the first, 6 months to a year. So I must be a genius. And then one of the best investments I think I've ever made, or bets, was I bought a house in 2019. And I didn't know the housing market was going to go through the roof in 2020 through to 2025, right? But I bought it because of my brother and I wanted to buy a house and blah, blah, blah. And so all to say, like, these are investments outside of that main Roth IRA investment, right? Like I knew I was allocating a certain amount of money each month to a Roth, and I was good when I'm like 60. So it allows me to maybe take a little more risk in my current life now.
Yeah. No, that reminds me of this thing that I heard originally through Nicholas Nassim Taleb. He wrote Skin in the Game and Anti-Fragile and Black Swan, a couple books. He's an economist and talks a lot about a barbell strategy. So you imagine a barbell is fat on one end, thin in the middle, and fat on the other end. And if you think about that axis across the bottom as level of risk, allocating a bunch to really safe stuff and then a bunch to really risky stuff is a strategy. I don't follow exactly a barbell strategy, but that kind of like cover your bases and then you could have a cowboy account is a version of barbell strategy in which, if 90% of your net worth is put into these really risky things, well, if that goes down or to zero, well, you've risked a lot of your safety net, your future, versus if you have 90% of your stuff in relatively safe stuff. No investment is 100% safe. The closest you get probably is like U.S. government treasuries, right? Like bonds.
Even there's a risk there, but like it's not as big.
There is,
right?
Yeah, it's not as big, right? So
yeah.
But then you can kind of like go and do this other things, and if it goes to zero, well then you just lost. You're still sitting with 90% of what you had before, and you're not completely wiped out. And so I think it's important to kind of think about, not if this will go up or if it will go down, but what would happen. This is kind of what Anti-Fragile is all about. That book is, well, you can't predict the likelihood of something happen, but you can figure out like what would be the consequences if this happened, and then just decide on, okay, if this investment goes to zero, where does that put me? And then if you're able to survive, you're not knocked out of the market entirely, then you're probably in an okay spot to make that investment. Versus if you're sitting there and sweating to think, hey, I need Bitcoin to double in another year, or else I'm hosed.
Or I'm screwed.
I don't know if that's necessarily a great decision overall. At least that's from my temperament.
Right. And the great part about this is I think that it's a little bit of both, right? Like when you said, for your sake, it's good that Kalshi or Polymarket, but that's the thing. I think it's good to have both in the sense where you're not risking it all to put yourself on the streets, right? Because I do believe, like Sam Altman said, of like, playing these prediction games actually allows you to maybe think critically in shorter terms and like try to understand what the best percentage of you, the outcome is. That doesn't mean you should drop everything and just play poker or just be on Kalshi and all these other things. It's a combination of the two. And that's what I think most people don't get. And, the two interns that worked for Flybodies 2 years ago, Samal and can't remember his name. I got them to start their Roth IRAs through a buddy of mine, which I thought was really cool because I was like, oh, wow, like they didn't know what a Roth IRA is. And I don't think a lot of people know what a Roth IRA is for them to have that hedge. Because if your parents or friends or family members that are in your family, most people aren't going to sit down and explain this to you because they're like, oh, they'll learn it at some point, right? And that's where I'm just like, this is why I want to do this podcast is there's no reason, it's not a bad thing to bet in the short term, but you also need to think about the long term. So that's why I really want to talk about this because I'm by no means am I the best investor of all time, but I feel a sense of calm in my life, like you said earlier, of why or having that Roth, and it's at 184,000 right now. Now that doesn't mean I can't dip into that whenever I want, but like having that there, I'm just like, it's a sense of calm. And then the other thing, I found this story about Peter Thiel. Have you heard this story about Peter Thiel and his Roth IRA?
Yeah, I mean, I know about Peter Thiel's Roth IRA. I have some opinions on it.
Ooh,
you can tell the story.
I'll tell the story. Okay, here we go. So back in the late 1990s, before PayPal became a household name, Peter Thiel reportedly bought about 1.7 million early PayPal shares inside a Roth IRA. The crazy part is the price around 1/10 a penny per share. So he roughly bought it for $1,700 shares of PayPal, but it was 1.7 million of those shares. And he did that through his Roth IRA. Then PayPal took off, it grew fast, went public, and was eventually acquired by eBay. And because those shares were sitting in his Roth IRA, the gains were protected inside tax-free structure. The small investment reportedly turned into tens of millions, and then Thiel kept using the account to make other high upside investments. Over time, according to reporting, the Roth grew from less than $2,000 into billions. Now tell me what's your beef?
Well, so the being able to buy those securities at that value, like not market value, kind of like private investment, is not accessible to everyone, right? And so he talks a lot about the Roth IRA as this powerful thing, and it's like, yeah, I would love to buy, PayPal at
Flybody stock in my Roth IRA.
Well, no, but like literally anything, and then now that the money's in there, the principal that's in there. That is it's gained value, and now he can take that money and then invest in all these other things. He's got like this massive amount that he can invest around into different things. He's playing a completely different game, and I think that's where it's like my beef is that two things is one, accessibility to different things. Like I don't knock him for having the relationships that he has and the ability to do it, but it's like buying it under market value is a hack, a cheat.
Sure. Yeah, he played the system.
Sure. And then it grows and then it's this massive thing that now he has this ability to grow, anyone. So the amount that I have in my account, like there are certain things that I can go and invest them in. Vanguard, I think, is famously, I don't know if they reversed this recently, but they're kind of famously like, we're not going to allow Bitcoin into our accounts. Mm-hmm. And so, lots of people are like, hey, I want to start putting that into my retirement accounts. It's becoming more institutional and, I want to put it in there. But Vanguard is like, no, we don't believe in it. They might have changed that recently. There's like some like Bitcoin ETFs and stuff that were becoming popular a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of these things that private markets and being able to access like different investments that other people can't access is not... I don't want to say, hey, I don't think that's fair. I just think it's like in the Roth, the idea of the Roth and the idea behind it is not for the Peter Thiels of the world, but good for him for having access to that. And now he can do whatever he wants, and it's going to grow tax free, and that's fine, right?
And I honestly, I just thought the story was interesting because I was like, oh, even Peter Thiel's using a Roth. Obviously, he was kind of using it almost not nefariously, but like in a way that nobody else uses it. But like it was interesting because
so nobody else could have made that purchase of PayPal. Right,
exactly. But they could do it for other companies if they wanted to. But that's like a different. We're not talking, to that specific audience. And then, I guess. There's only a couple more things I wanted to talk about. One, there's on Netflix, there's a documentary called the Manosphere documentary. Have you heard of that?
Louis Theroux goes around and interviews all the folks like in the current Manosphere.
Have you watched
the toxic male influencers? I've seen clips of it, a little bit of it.
It is terrible. It makes me cringe and it just makes me upset to watch that these guys the reason being it makes me upset is because I think they put this this persona out there of just follow me, do what I do, and you'll become rich, right? And I'm making $10,000 before I even get out of bed. You can too. I just hate that type of promotion or advertising because young influential adults will say, I want to make $10,000 before I get out of bed, right? And so then to your point, that feeds into this whole Kalshi poly market stuff where it's like, I need to be able to get rich quick. This guy's doing it and he's got a hot girl right beside him. I think that just makes me sad.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I have this story. When I was in the Air Force, there was a staff sergeant. So that's kind of like a middle rank non-commissioned officer that was talking to young, just out of high school airmen about buying penny stocks. And I was like, bro, you can't, one, don't do that. Don't do that. One, bad advice. Two, I actually don't think that you're
Wall
allowed
Street
to.
Out here, dog. What's he doing?
Well, it's the idea that get rich quick schemes are just, no, so I had to tell him to stop it. And then I also had a conversation, sat everyone down and talked about the TSP because they didn't have TSP. I was like, so what, all I did was I asked a bunch of questions. I said, okay, interesting. So what did he talk to you about? Let's hear what's going on here. And I was like, do you have a TSP account? They're like, well, what's that? And I was like, okay, let's back up a little bit. I'm not knocking them. That's why I want to be curious about what they kind of knew, what they were thinking about, and also I'm not trying to give them financial advice, but I am trying to be prudent about allowing the influences.
You want to tell them how the game works.
That's right. And so, get rich quick schemes are exciting, right? Because it's the idea that you can get high return with low risk, and those opportunities. I'm not going to say never because there are few that do exist, but very few people have access to them.
Very few.
And so if you're chasing a get rich quick scheme, so like gold mining endeavor
in Africa with one machine that we paid for that was going to give us 10x. Yeah, no.
So it's this thing. It's super exciting. It's dangerous because it gives the perception that is the way to get rich, and I don't think that that's true for the vast majority of people, and also a lot of the influencers, so like Rich Dad Poor Dad, or I'm thinking about some other financial influencers that I don't want to flame a bunch of people.
Dude, flame them. Just put them.
It's why how are they making money?
Yeah. No,
how are
exactly.
they making money? They're making money because you buy their courses, or you pay the Patreon to get the secret information.
Or they have massive amounts of debt. They'll be like, oh yeah, I have $300 million in debt. Wait, what? Yeah.
They're leveraging themselves, which is super dangerous. Super dangerous. Because then you could get wiped out, right? So if you think about 2 times leverage, a 50% drop in your investment wipes you out.
So what we're saying here is take care of the safe bets first. Get a good baseline so that when you are 55, 60, 75, you have some sort of safety net so that you can, with a more calm, realistic output, I can make these little short-term bets. And this is where I want to talk to you I know we got about 5 minutes. Alex Hormozy talks about active income versus passive income. And he talks about how everybody wants to bring in some type, build up some type of passive income. And he was like, 99.9% of people should stop worrying about passive income because you don't have that amount of wealth to bring in enough passive income for you to feel comfortable about your life. And if you do, you're not worried about passive income, right? Like he's like, you need to focus on active income. Whereas how can I increase my yearly salary, my monthly salary on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, because that is what is going to give you the most wealth over time so that you have these little, and the reason why I say that is because betting on sports shouldn't be most people's active income. And you should be focusing on how you can grow your pie in your actual job, or like doing things like this is making us more marketable as human beings and doing stuff like that. So like, I love that because I think a lot of people are like, I want to get rich. I want to have passive income, blah, blah, blah. Active income is the way to go.
Yeah. So I agree that growing top line, what you're bringing in a month, is important. There's a book called I Will Make You Rich. Now I'm forgetting the guy's name that wrote it. $1 saved is actually better than a new dollar earned. So if you think about, like, let's just say, you're taxed at 20%. $1 that you earn is actually 80 cents. Whereas if you have $1 already saved and you keep that, that's a full dollar. And what I want to say in that is that, yes, you should think about, wealth just doesn't come for free. There's a lot of luck. There's a lot of like opportunities. There's a lot of where you were born. There's a lot of all these things that go into that. What you can control is who are your models for living, right? So the manosphere stuff that you talk about are these finance influencers, and they talk about, look at the life that I have and look how much money I'm spending. It's like, okay, be careful about who you follow and who you listen to, because that standard of where you think that you are relative to other people is what will drive all of the decisions that you make in your life in general. Finances especially, because it's a social comparison game. And so, yes, drive your top line by bringing in more through active. Like that's always a great thing to focus on. And then do like an audit of it. Are these things making me happy? Like, like for example, the ruthless prioritization is the thing that it talks about, and I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I think it's Sethi is his last name. Ramit Sethi. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes. Sorry, it's coming. It's okay. It's like 80% there.
You only have so much information in that brain, Garrett.
So much, and it's always like 80% of somebody's name. Not all of it though.
But I want to cut you off and say I love that you brought that up. It's not all about money. Money definitely is part of this game, but I love that you brought that up. Is like, look, guys, there's only so much money that you really need to be happy or to feel like you are taken care of in this world. So it's not all about money, but also you want to feel comfortable from a money standpoint so that you don't always feel anxiety of like, I need to make more money to live.
And part of that is so there's needs, and then there's the wants, right, that go on top of that. Who you model your life after is going to drive what those wants look like, and that's going to you're just going to be like, look at who's around you. You're gonna drive your wants up and up and up and up and up, and the difference between how much you make and how much you actually need and use to live on, that's the wealth. That's the optionality. That's the, hey, I have buffer here. And so you can do that at any amount of income. Like there's people who, obviously living subsistence, they're living paycheck to paycheck, but their needs are literally at
because
that.
Because they have to probably make it. Like it's possible.
Right? So, but once you meet that, from that point forward, it really becomes, you need to be active about who you're choosing to model your life around.
Gosh,
that's the true wealth, is your ability to make decisions and have the freedom because you're living below what you're bringing in. So I'm not saying don't have nice cars. I'm not saying don't have a big house. I'm not saying don't do any of that stuff. All I'm saying is be intentional about why you're doing things, right? If you think that you're going to impress people, the psychology
internal scorecard versus external, right?
100%. And then what does it actually mean? And so trying to escape that rat race can really provide clarity, freedom at any level.
So to boil it down, in my mind, the message that I think we wanted to get across is take care of your bases. Very minimal, at the least $100 a month to a Roth IRA. If you can do more, great. Like take care of your bases from a financial standpoint, and then have some type of little cowboy account that you can go, you know what? I like a little excitement in my life. I like a little, relish on my hot dog, as they say in the Take Me Home Tonight movie. But would you say that's the kind of the takeaway of this? Like, and you can add to that.
Yeah, and I'd say on top of that, what it comes down to is you're going to bring in a certain amount of money per month, per year through various methods. Most people should be thinking about kind of like building up skills to make themselves more valuable. That's that active income. And then you can control what you spend your money on in large part. And so picking a great life partner that has a similar vision and ensuring that you're modeling your life and the decisions that you're making after people that you actually admire, they want to have. It's like it's a very dangerous game to start to creep up that ladder, because now you're literally running yourself out of room to be able to live your life and have optionality if you continue to raise your standard of living with your income going up, and you've gotten no wealthier, versus like driving a wedge between those things, or capping a reasonable cap on kind of like how you live your life. Now, if you have crazy amount of money and it's going up and going up and up and up, and then you want to keep increasing that, awesome. But it's actually just like relative to wherever you're at, it's like that gap between what you bring in and what you live on that's true wealth right there.
Exactly. And Professor G, the guy from NYU, Scott Galloway.
Galloway.
Yeah. He said, you guys said the exact same thing, which is cool, because it's like you could make $2 million, but if you spend $2.1 million, you're screwed. Like I love that aspect of it, is like just being conscious of that and saying, you know what, I'm going to take care of my long-term basis. I'm going to have a cowboy account, and then I'm going to live within my means. It's such a good message. All right. I think that's all we got. That's the pod.